what if Wonder Woman was raised in hell? Absolute Wonder Woman is so freaking good, so let's jump into issue 1 and break it down. Starting off on Gateway City's coast, we pick up with the news anchor and his cameraman in fear for their lives because an unidentified flying object popped up on the beach out of nowhere. In the midst of trying to cover it and explain what it was, the situation escalated even further with a bunch of little demon-like dragons emerging from the pyramid and attacking nearby civilians. And that's when none other than the Princess of Hell, Diana, comes pouring in from the sky on her demonic Pegasus, whipping out her massive guts-like sword and slicing off a massive portion of the dragon's heads off. And actually, I don't know, this sword kind of looks more like clouds, I think. But anyways, after that, she continues her domination, front flipping off of Pegasus, slicing off even more dragons' heads off, and then literally using their blood as face paint. But honestly, that wasn't even the craziest part, because moments later she crossed her forearms in order to conjure up dark magic that was so powerful that it knocked every single dragon in the vicinity unconscious. Meanwhile, the narration in the background from a sorceress named Cersei reads, "Once upon a time there was a princess, and the princess had all the gifts any princess could hope to have. Beauty, grace, compassion, wisdom, and the ability to outrun a hellhound and conjure the darkest of magic. Things every princess would need if she was raised in hell." That's when the story takes us on a journey to the past in the wild Isle of Hell, more specifically Cersei's prison. Once the ruler of a remote paradise, she was now a prisoner of a solitary wasteland, and one day she was paid an unexpected visit by the sun god Apollo, and he didn't come empty-handed, handing her a baby and telling her it was hers now. Her name was Diana, princess of the Themyscira and the last of the Amazons. Due to their so-called crimes against the gods, she was being taken from them and never again to be reunited. Taking things a step even further, Apollo then declared the word Amazon banned for eternity, so Diana wouldn't be able to know what she was. Upon making his exit, Cersei addressed her concerns, expressing that this was hell and that Diana would probably end up dying. But Apollo was completely unbothered, stating that the gods didn't care and that hell was her home for as long as she lived. Now, just like him, Cersei didn't care for Diana at first either. She wasn't her mother, and Apollo didn't indicate she had to keep her alive, so she leaves the baby all by herself with a giant glowing snake approaching. And you'd think that this was the end for her, but in fact, it was only the beginning, with Diana yeeting the snake out of her sight. All the creatures in hell were gonna have to learn the hard way that Diana was a different breed. Not even a fire-breathing lizard was a match for her. It singed a little bit of her hair off, but after that, she just picked it up, told it no, and then kissed its head. As narrated by Cersei, plenty of things tried to kill her, but there was no overwhelming force of creatures bent on her destruction. She had a quality that softened even the most treacherous beasts. And Cersei wasn't just talking about all the little creatures and demons that drifted to her, because as she raised her, she began falling in love with her as well, eventually teaching her the ways of dark magic. But one day, Diana brought up a word that she wasn't sure was real because neither her or her mother had ever spoke it. Now, obviously she was talking about the word Amazon that Apollo banished, but she didn't speak it at the time out of fear of what the word would bring. Nevertheless, as life carried onward, together they had many journeys with each other and wound up fighting a wide variety of demonic creatures, able to overcome every single one of them thanks to Diana's power in addition to dark magic. After that, our issue takes us back to present-day Gateway City, where Diana asked a nearby soldier where his superior was because the little demon dragons were only stunned, so they needed to start evacuating all citizens within a mile. Before even getting a chance to, though, they were out of time. Emerging from the floating pyramid itself was the final boss, a monstrous creature referred to as Harbinger Prime that intended on destroying all in its path. So Diana tried commanding it to go back where it came from, but it refused to cooperate in any way, shape, or form. In the midst of deflecting its first attack, Diana stood her ground as long as she could, but eventually it was too overwhelming, so she signaled Pegasus to hit it with fire breath. This was but a mere distraction though. As the monster batted Pegasus away, Diana ran up to its leg in an effort to use her dark magic, but unfortunately it was to no success. The beast would blast her with its laser vision just long enough for its little dragons to come back to their senses. After that, they swarmed Diana with everything they had, giving the Harbinger Prime yet another opportunity to use its laser vision on her. Knowing she was as good as gone if she didn't pick up the pace, Diana started moving so quickly that she was able to dodge each and every one of the beams, putting herself in a position where she could deflect one of them right at its face. Despite such incredible efforts though, the beast was only angered even more, so it knocked her unconscious by hitting her with such a massive blast that she went flying across the sand. The comic then goes back back to hell in the past, where once again she brought up this word that she could feel so powerfully in her chest without even knowing what it meant. So Cersei told her to say the word and know that it's what she was: Amazon. She then explained that Apollo banned her from ever saying that word again, so Diana asked her why. It was because the Amazons had a job to do. They protected the world above from the oldest monsters that wanted to feast on it. Without the Amazons, the world never made it far, so perhaps it was time for her to say the word again and become what she was always meant to be. And as she screamed the word over and over again, she began coming back to her senses on the beach. Soon enough, she confronted the monstrous beast once again, but this time she was absolutely ready for war, pulling out a red lasso that supposedly inflicts way more pain than the lasso of truth, and stating that she was Diana of the Mascara and the Princess of Hell, so it would not have this world as long as she was breathing. But with that being said, guys, our issue sadly comes to an end, but if you want to see what happens next, let me know in the comments down below.